also forgive.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, O God.
One Sabbath, when Jesus came to eat a meal in the house of one of the leading Pharisees, the guests watched him closely. Jesus addressed a parable to the guests, noticing how they were trying to get a place of honor at the table. When you are invited to a wedding party, do not sit in the place of honor in case someone more distinguished has been invited. Otherwise, the host might come and say to you, "Make room for this person," and you would have to proceed shamefacedly to the lowest place. What you should do is go and sit in the lowest place, so that when your hosts approach, they may say, "My friend, go up higher." This will win you the esteem of the other guest. For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then Jesus said to the host, "Whenever you give a lunch or dinner, do not invite your friends or colleagues or relatives or wealthy neighbors. They might invite you in return and thus repay you. No, when you have a reception, invite those who are poor, who have physical infirmities, or are blind. You should be pleased that they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the just." The good news of salvation. Good evening. So tonight, I think the readings, first and third anyway, deal with some forms of humility. In tonight's first reading from Sirach, we hear of the advantages of humility. You're humble, you will be loved more than a giver of gifts. You will find favor with God. And he also warned you not to get too pretentious. What is too sublime for you, seek not. When we were growing up, I remember people saying, and I don't know if it was, but I believe it, humility is truth. Humility is truth. The more you are aware of who you are, the strengths and the weaknesses, the faults and the failings, the virtues and the vices, the more humble you will be. There are two paths to that. The mystics and a lot of spiritual writers talking about going deep, doing the shadow work, examining yourself each day in the events of the day. And that is certainly a way. But the other way is also, and it's a both and thing, not an either or thing. We've been growing up in a religion, many of us, and a world that's either or. And the more we live, I hope you'll understand it's both and. And the other way is, of course, to go out and find yourself in others. Tonight's gospel starts with Jesus offering advice on how to avoid humiliation. Choose the lowest place. He said, for all who would exalt themselves will be humbled, and for all those who humble themselves will be exalted. Now, I would note this is wise advice, but it's not humility. If Bob sits at the lowest place with the expectation that the master or the leader of the house will come and say, "Oh, Bob, come speak sit up higher. If that's my expectation, that's sage living maybe, but it is not humility. So and the gospel then proceeds to what really is. Because being humble is the intent is not to be exalted. True humility seeks no reward. And this is precisely where the gospel goes, as Jesus proposes that they hold a lunch or dinner and invite the poor, the lame, and the blind. It was surely a suggestion that had the audience thinking, are you kidding? Not too different, I'm afraid, than if the proposal was made to me and you today. Give a party, bring in the blind and the lame and the poor. What? That was the challenge Jesus provided. As Mary McLean said in her commentary, Jesus, when he told this story, made it about a wedding banquet, a sure sign he was talking about a lot more than a meal. Wedding banquets were one of his favorite symbols of obeying of God. A wedding celebrates something new and full of potency. It's sacred. The bonds of love are renewed, and they really can transform an entire community. And that's the setting of grace. The commentaries on this gospel state that the last 4 verses Jesus said to the host, whenever you give a lunch or dinner, do not invite your friends or colleagues. That is not in any of the other synoptics. All the other parts are. But this invitation, when you have a reception, bring in the poor. The recompense, they say, the commentaries, lies in a growing likeness to God himself in our humility. The God who tells the least worthy to go up higher. A foretaste of something to be made perfect at the resurrection of the just. So it's a foretaste of the end of our life. If we live life in humility and for others. What could happen? Mary McClone writes in her commentary on this gospel, what could happen at such a dinner if we did that? The variety of people and perspectives around the table would remind us that God's creation brims with luxuriant diversity. And she cites Pope Francis in his letter Fratelli Tutti, where he critiques this gospel, lamenting that we can quiet ourselves on dreams of splendor and end up consuming distraction, insularity, and solitude. Human beings, he states, are so many that they cannot live, develop, and find fulfillment except in the sincere gift of self to others. And that's what this gospel proposes. In this Friday's New York Times, David Brooks wrote a column, "Your social life is not what it should be." Not hard to sell. Its premise is that the findings of social sciences are finding that social connections make us happier, healthier, and more successful. And yet when you look around, nobody is talking to anyone. It's just headphones and newspapers. Why? Research reveals we underestimate the rewards of social interaction. We are an extremely social species, but we see the world in anxiety-drenched ways that cause us to avoid social situations that would be fun, educational, and rewarding. Brooks suggested that people understood this, how our expectations are so unrealistically anxious and negative, then maybe we could alter our behavior. Can we get better? Nicholas Epley, the social scientist who's run most of this research, assures us that once you get used to filling your day with a social exercise, getting in touch with a friend, calling a friend, don't text them, that moves you forward. Saying hello to someone sitting next to you on the subway or the bus or in the park, getting used to interacting afresh. He assures us that it gets easier and easier and much more and more fun. It has changed his life. So if we take the confluence of science and religion, we return to Pope Francis, who states, life, for all its confrontations, is the art of encounter. We as a people should be passionate about meeting others, seeking points of contact, building bridges, planning a project that includes everyone. Mary McClone writes in a further commentary, in tonight's gospel, Jesus calls that the resurrection of the righteous. Amen.